Hi, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Shannon Butcher with PSERC. Thanks for joining us. Today we have Professor Lei Ji from Texas A&M, and he's going to be presenting Blockchain and Energy, a case study of flexible computing loads in Texas. If you have questions, please submit them to the Q&A box. Professor Shi, please begin when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining this PSERC webinar series, where leading power system researchers and practitioners get together, talk about the topics of interest. It's a great honor and pleasure to present to you all some of our recent activities at the intersection of blockchain and energy. In particular, looking at it from the perspective of how these large computing loads might become an asset for the grid demand flexibilities. And I hope that even though this case study is centered in Texas, a lot of the research challenges and opportunities are indeed generalizable in many other parts of the power grid in the nation and around the world. And I very much look forward to have a discussion at the end of my presentation. So as it comes, when we are thinking about the blockchain and energy, it'd be good to sort of frame the conversation by looking at the scale of the issue. As we all know, one of the largest sector of new electrical loads are in the area of computing loads. Now, how large are these loads? The IEA, International Energy Agency, has published some data on that. So I want to just highlight 2 points for your reference. If you look at the entire world's energy use in the data centers, that means including all the, Amazons of the world, Microsoft of the world, Googles of the world, all combined, look at their electricity consumption. In the year of 2022, it is about 250 to 350 terawatt hours. Whereas if you look at just on the space of cryptocurrency mining, in particular in the case of Bitcoin mining, the electricity consumption is around 100 to 150 terawatt hour in the year of 2022. Much of which happened to be in my backyard in the area of Texas. So that's the scale that we are talking about. It is a large scale emerging electric demand. And the scale that the fact that the crypto mining energy use is just about a third to a half of the entire data center energy use, I think it's staggering. And just for your reference, the state of Illinois uses just about 140 terawatt hour of electricity in the year of 2020. So that's probably on the order of how much the crypto mining energy is used in the year of 2022. So that is sort of the reference point that we'd like to bring to your attention. Now, how is this data center and computing loads be placed in broader view of all the emerging demand? Perhaps one of the largest emerging electric demand anywhere that you can think about is in the area of transportation electrification, right? You look around, how many electric vehicles you see on the streets and so on, there's a lot more. So how does the data center or computing loads compare to the amount of electricity consumption in the vehicle electrification side? That is also another interesting thing that I recently just got to know, and I'm happy to share with you. If you look at some of the data and projection on the electricity consumption in the data center, here data center is in a lumped topic that includes traditional data centers, AI, large language model data centers, as well as this cryptocurrency mining demand. If you look at that in a global sense, in terms of how much electricity they consume, and compared to how much electricity consumption is in the area of electric vehicles, right, global, you see these two charts. First of all, both sectors are increasing tremendously. In fact, these probably are the two highest growth sector when it comes to electric demand. Secondly, both are big numbers, big numbers. If you look at the year of end of 2022 to just about 3-4 years down the road, the data center electricity consumption is bound to grow at a staggering rate of tripling just within the 2, 3, 4 years time frame. It's going to triple. Of course, the electricity consumption that is estimated from the global EV sales and how much people are we using charging to power their cars is also a large number. But it is interesting that I contrast the y-axis, the vertical axis to you. You can see it is about on the order of about a third when it comes to the electricity consumption in the vehicle electrification sector view versus the electricity consumption in the global data center sector. So that's the picture on the global scale. Now, what is happening in the US? You look at the situation in the US, this ratio is even sharper. What I mean by that is that in the US, we have about a little over a third, anywhere between a third and a half of the data center concentrated in the US in terms of the global penetration. So this is how much electricity consumption in the US when it comes to data center AI and cryptocurrency mining. Whereas if you look at the electric vehicle side, it's also take up fairly significantly, but it is not the leading market when it comes to electric vehicle in the US in view of the globe. So the point I want to make is that if you think about the United States, there's even a higher concentration of this data center computing and cryptocurrency mining demand in the electricity sector as compared to the global situation. And that is something we ought to pay a lot of attention to as power system engineers. Now, why is this going so fast? Isn't that a lot of things are happening that is making the computation more and more energy efficient? How come the electricity consumption is on the rise? So it is really a joint result of getting more and more energy efficient thanks to a lot of technological innovations, and the other force, which is just the sheer increase of the computation in the context of cryptocurrency mining. In particular, majority of this focus on the so-called proof of works Bitcoin minings. The network hash rate, which is sort of a proxy of how much computation is used for mining such cryptocurrencies. Between the year 2016 and the year 2022, it increased over 14,000%, namely 140 times. So even though on a per computation basis, we're very proud about the progress that we are making as a technology space, that per computation energy intensity has actually decreased by about 85%. But if you do the math, multiply that with the amount of increase on the computation, in this case, the network hash rate is a good proxy of that. You get a net result of about 20 times, not 20%, 20 times increase in the network electricity usage in the US, just in the area of crypto mining. And a lot of them are just happening in my backyard in the area of Texas. So when all these people show up and knock at our doors, I thought, this is such a big problem. We need to take a look at it. Such a big issue, right? So what is the role of a university, in particular researchers like us? What is the role in this very rapidly evolving field of blockchain, computation, and cryptocurrencies? I think there are 4 areas that university ought to play a role. Education. We don't teach our students this kind of combined knowledge of power systems, blockchain programming and its implication on the finance side. On the research, we're getting a lot of requests from system operators, from utility companies to help figure out what exactly is the potential of these large computing loads when it comes to demand flexibilities, when it comes to advancing the energy efficiency of per computation, right? Innovations needed for the computer architectures. Public perception, whether you like it or you don't like it, it is out there. Is cryptocurrency good? Is cryptocurrency bad? How should one think about it? It's a ongoing debate, and I think university has a role to play in providing some platform for such discussions and policy making. There's a lot of issues when it comes to interconnection requests. There's a backlog of interconnection requests. There's a lot of issues regarding the way this peak demand can be shaped by the flexibility from these large computing loads. Where do we expand the transmission, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of need for that as well. I think this is really where I think a group of us got together here at Texas A&M and trying to, help this very new emerging area with these four aspects of contributions. And so we actually has formed up this Blockchain Energy Research Consortium, or PSERC for short. So as you can see, this is one of the pictures that a group of us, including some experts from power electronics, from computation and information theory, with a site visit to the world's largest cryptocurrency mining facility in Rockdale, Texas. It's about 50 minutes away from College Station. We also have held a low voltage write-through workshop here on campus. As you can see, we were moderating a panel discussion right here. The gentleman to my left is the lead of the Large Flexible Load Task Force at ERCOT. And then the gentleman to his left is the vice president of Priority Power, a major load-serving entities that provide such service to the demand. Then the gentleman to his left is the VP of engineering at Riot, the world's largest Bitcoin mining companies. And the gentleman to the very far right is a policy advocate, the president of Texas Blockchain Council. So as you can see, we have, I think, a very unique convening power in the sense that we would like to bring these very different perspectives of stakeholders together and to have a conversation about the science and engineering challenges behind this very fast growing computing demands, in particular in the context of cryptocurrency mining. So I thought, I can't share you better than perhaps sharing with you this video that a group of us took together with some colleagues from ERCOT to visit this Riot facility out in Rockdale. So you can probably have a sense about how large this operation is and what is the scale of the challenges and opportunities that we are talking about. This is a 750 megawatt facility. Let me just quickly roll it.
Hi, my name is Pierre Rochard. I'm the Vice President of Research here at Riot Platforms. We're here at our Rockdale facility. We've got guests from ERCOT and from Texas A&M University. We're going to show them around, show them what an industrial scale Bitcoin miner looks like. We're at Building D. We're visiting this building because it's an air-cooled building. So this is a great example of the world-class engineering we have here at Riot. We're in Building F, an immersion-cooled building out here in Rockdale. We want to show to ERCOT and Texas A&M what the cutting edge of the industry looks like in terms of cooling technology, really highlighting the quietness of this building, as well as the improved efficiency and durability of the equipment. An important aspect of industrial scale Bitcoin mining is participating in grid services so that when there's a lot of stress on the grid, we're able to power off buildings like this one, give that electricity back to the grid. What I really enjoyed about this visit was getting to hear the different perspectives, getting to hear from Texas A&M about their research on Bitcoin mining and the grid.
So you see there's a knowledge gap between people who understand the energy world, people who understand the computer and programming world and people who understand the finance world. We do not have a very good group of people who really are very well versed in all three aspects. The students who are sitting here are going to be the first cohort, hopefully, who really understand this.
And we also got to hear from ERCOT's perspective with regards to large flexible loads here in the state of Texas. So all in all, I think it's really important to have dialogue, to have education from different stakeholders so that we can learn from each other and keep improving.
So this is one of our students talking to one of their engineers on site. So this is really, I think, a very kind of a interesting interaction between this very new emerging sector with the power system sector. And this number that I'm showing you here kind of first took me by surprise, but later on, this really kind of visualizes this coupling between the crypto or blockchain industry versus the power industry through this very interesting chart. So this is what you see here is the global hash rate. So this is the worldwide computation devoted to mine cryptocurrencies. This was the summer of 2022. So as you might notice, there is a visible drop of about 18% worldwide computation in hash rate between the day of July 8th and July 13th. So this is on the computation side. This is how much computer is devoted to be mining these cryptocurrencies. Now, what happened in that 5 days? It turns out that 5 days was extremely hot here in Texas. And that's exactly when ERCOT was issuing things like emergency responsive services requests. So that's interesting coupling between weather was very hot in Texas and the computation globally was down by about 18%. Really kind of struck me when I first saw this. I thought, wow, this is really speaking about this very strong correlation between what is happening in the power system world and what is happening in this cryptocurrency world. So I thought, connecting the dots of something that we, a while back did, which was reflecting upon the need for large-scale demand flexibility, especially during the extreme weather situations. We wrote this article back in the winter storm, 2021 time, when we were asking, how much does demand flexibility would have spared Texas from the outage? One of the big takeaway from this paper was that we need to scale up demand response in big time, perhaps not 1 time, not 2 times, but perhaps 10 times. So sort of connecting the dots, I was like, okay, would this new emerging demand be potentially one of the 2 sets that might be utilized when this peak demand happened? And believe me, this peak demand is breaking the record every year in Texas. So if you look at the winter storm Uri, that was 2021, the peak demand was about 73 gigawatt. Compared to what is happening now, it already dwarfs that number, right? Here we are seeing a just incredible growth of the peak demand. In fact, we're working to provide our feedback to both ERCOT and the Public Utility Commission of Texas on ways to really break this trend. So tying these 2 things together, I thought the question would be, how much of flexibility can these computing loads provide, in particular when the system becomes very stressed? Because these are really indeed large-scale operations. So we did sort of a first of its kind study where we got this data of the system-wide locational marginal price. This price, sort of roughly speaking, is a proxy of the situation, the tightness of the supply demand and the level of stress on the grid with respect to the total crypto mining demand in Texas, as well as the system-wide net demand. So for those who are familiar with the notion of net load, this speaks about the total electric demand minus the total amount of renewable generation at the time, right? So I want to just bring to your attention these 2 numbers. These are the correlation coefficient of 2 numbers. One is during the summer peak year of 2022, the non-mining load with the system-wide net load, this correlation coefficient is extremely high, right? which makes sense. It basically says that whenever the grid is very stressed, so is your house wanting to use a lot more electricity. Most likely you're turning on your AC very strongly. And same is for industrial and commercial loads. Whereas this mining load, a little to my surprise, is showing a very negative correlation coefficient. It basically means that when the system is very stressed, this mining load, most of the time, are turned off. Now, this is just, I want to just highlight, emphasize, this is not causal relationship study. This is just a correlation coefficient study, okay? So we cannot from this draw any conclusion about what is causing what, but, correlation-wise, it is a negative correlation. And there are many other, there are many possible explanations of why they do so, which we can talk about during the discussion period. So kind of visually speaking, you sort of see something like this, where as the price on the market changes from low to high, the bubble size here refers to the amount of mining demand in aggregated sense is going from high to low, right? So it's a very strong kind of a negative correlations that we were able to animate for you here. So this is one of these company that is publicly listed in New York Stock Exchange. So we obtained their quarterly filing on the SEC. So this is totally obtained from the public sources. And it's kind of interesting to refer to your attention on this very hot summer months of August 2023. As you can see, the claimed power credit and demand response credit out of this company's operation in the month of August 2023 is about 24 plus 7, it's about $30 million. Whereas the Bitcoin sale in that month was just about $8.6 million. So I just want to bring to your attention that they actually are indeed making more profit or credit in the energy side as compared to the Bitcoin side. Of course, that's a special month because that's a month that things are extremely hot and most likely they're not doing much of these mining operations. But this is something at least I thought was very interesting to me, and I want to bring to your attention. So so that's sort of at the conceptual level how these large computing loads could potentially respond to signals, technical signal as well as market signals, to respond to the level of the stress on the grid. But I think there's also a larger question, which is, what exactly is their impact when it comes to carbon footprint? And what is exactly their impact when it comes to grid reliability, in addition to the prices? So we published this article just about a year ago, where we adopt probably the first of its kind high resolution data based upon a synthetic grid in Texas to analyze such impact on these three perspectives. First, I want to talk about reliability. So we studied a number of different scenarios. One of the scenario is assuming that there will be some additional firm load and 50% more renewables. The other scenario we study here is having 20% additional firm load, but double the renewable generation portfolio. And the key message that we find out of this study is that it really matters on how we model these computing loads as flexible or not flexible. Because if you think about them as firm load, as non-flexible load, you're in for a substantial degradation of system reliability. Understandably so, because we are seeing a lot more fluctuating supply. And if these demand are no flexible at all, then we are bound to have a lot more blackouts. Here in the in the context of loss of load hourly. But if you model these computing loads as either fully flexible or even just partially flexible meaning that they only need to be flexible for 6 hours a day, between 2 to 8 p.m. a day, you're in for a very different message. In the message that their impact on the system reliability could be rather limited, negligible. In fact, sometimes if you model them in fully flexible, they could be even sometimes helpful. A little bit counterintuitive, right? Helpful in the sense that you add more of this, that actually does not damage or degrade the loss of load hourly at all. In fact, it helped a little bit. And again, it has to do because of this, the way you model the flexibility. So the detail, the devil is in the detail of how you would treat these large computing nodes. So I think a big message here is that you really have to think about their flexibilities. And indeed, they do have a lot of flexibilities, because you don't have to mine any given time of the day. Now, when it comes to carbon footprint, there are some studies done by the White House. There is also some studies done by the Cambridge University in the UK, Center for Alternative Finance, where they have provided some lump sum aggregated number on their carbon footprint. I guess here, the new thing is that we kind of took the engineering approach by modeling the underlying grid, and we studied the using the perspective of marginal emissions, and the result is that location actually matters a lot. In other words, it is not true that every single kilowatt hour of computation have the same amount of carbon emission impact. In fact, we found out that even with the same grid, depending on where these mining demand are or these computing demands are located, their per computation CO2 emission intensity could vary as much as 2 to 3 times, right? And one of the interesting things is that it is not always true that if you just locate this computing site next to or close to the renewable sites, you will necessarily lead to a lower carbon emission overall. That is not true. So in other words, it's not about the geographical distances, but rather it's about electrical distances, which we can talk more in detail if you're interested. When it comes to the price, it's the same kind of a takeaway message: location, location, location. Depending on where you locate them, and also depending on whether you treat them as completely firm load or price responsive load, their impact on the price increase is rather different, substantially different. So this is sort of our key takeaway from the study that we conducted on that paper, which is more coming on the economic, reliability, and emission perspectives. And then we thought that, this is such a up and emerging area. Students need to be aware of what is happening, and students are the great sources of innovation. So we need to give them the exposure of what is happening. So this is one of the, perhaps arguably the first mining machine unit installed in any university campus here in Texas. Not sure about North America, but one of the first ones being installed here in our lab on the first floor of Eisenbaker. As you can see, this is the fire siren is actually the mining sound. It is very loud, as you can see. As you can see,
get into a normal steady state.
So it provides the students a chance to see, to experience, and then to do innovations. And speaking of innovation, it is indeed figuring some very interesting innovation, in particular now in the context of disturbances, in particular in the context of low voltage right-through disturbances. So as we all know, these inverter-based resources like solar farms and wind farms has posed a lot of interesting challenges when it comes to operating the grid for stability purposes. And there has been a number of reported events that solar farms and wind farms, because of these inverter-based interfaces, has caused some a loss of supply of power because of some electromagnetic transient faults. Same thing is happening now in the computing side, which is very, very new. There is this very recent event in West Texas where there was this disturbance out in the west part of Texas that created this fault, then recorded this low voltage right through that is causing not only the failure of solar farms, but also the tripping of large mining loads. And these are not small amount of loads. These are as large as 400 megawatt of loads being tripped. So if you are a system operator, if you all of a sudden loses 400 megawatt of loads, you'll be worried. And there's another one that happened just about a year ago, which is the largest load loss event to date. There was multiple faults on this 130 kV line, including 3-phase fault due to the breaker failure, that led to a tripping of some 1.6 gigawatt of large loads, particularly in computing loads, including some other loads like oil and gas and other industrial loads, but the biggest one are the computing loads. So as a system operator, what should be the procedure of setting up these large computing loads, especially when it comes to making sure the grid stability is not compromised? It's a brand new area. We don't have much of knowledge to study that at all. So I guess this research is really more of a necessity rather than a choice. We sort of took upon these challenges and then started to work together with both the system operator as well as the mining industry to coming up with the understanding what exactly does this low voltage ride-through mechanism look like for demands, and what exactly is the way to analyze it, and how should we set up the standard for the grid? All these are open questions that is out there. I think very much looking forward for bright minds to think about these issues. So this is the lab setting that we have here at Texas A&M together with Professor Ingetti, where you have a programmable AC source where we can program the sort of a tripping of the events, and that is then fed over to this mining machine. It's one of the state of not so long study, but still reasonably recent S19 Pro machine. This is a 3.5 kilowatt of a mining unit. And then what you see here on the computer screen is their operating system called Brains operating systems. So we then took out of the circuit board of this S19 Pro miner. Now the latest one is probably S20 or S21, but roughly they have the similar structure. As you can see, this is the circuitry of what is behind this machine. There is this input AC, and then going through this boost power factor correction, and then the low voltage DC converter. So we designed this low voltage or zero voltage through this programmable AC source. And we want to see, just in a lab setting, how do these computer loads, respond to low voltage or zero voltage signals. So, and then there are different kinds of standards out there, right? So this is what we found. They were able to sustain up to about 9.5 milliseconds of close to zero voltage. But after that, they will trip. And this is the period zoomed in view. Of course, the standards out there in IEEE and so on, it is not as short as what we have seen on the lab testing, right? The black curve is the IEEE 1547 standard. The blue curve is the IEEE 1668 standard. If the system operator were to institute such standards for these mining loads, they're all going to fail, because the lab testing is showing they can only sustain up to 9 milliseconds, where the standard is about 18 times longer. So that triggers a very interesting question, which is, what should be a proper standard for these large computing loads when it comes to low voltage write-through? I guess the first question is, what should be a proper electromagnetic transient model for that such mining nodes? So the paper that I'm citing here is one of its first kind efforts in terms of coming up with EMTP models for the grid operators to analyze and study that. And then, this is just another zoomed in view of the challenges regarding the standard that we have today out in the industry for general inverter-based resources versus what we see here. Now, I will tell you one of the challenges. One of the challenges, one may say, well, don't the solar and wind farm have the same kind of a problem? Don't we have solved, haven't we already solved the problem from the wind and solar side? The challenge there is that if you think about wind or solar, they are energy sources. So if you have energy source and you need to do something about, sustaining certain low voltage right through, you have local energy supply. Whereas here, we're talking about demand, the computing loads, which is just a pure sink of energy. So if you want them to institute certain amount of low voltage rise-through capabilities, one has to think, very carefully about what should be the proper design of energy supply on site. And understandably so, you don't want this design to be overly costly, because that will affect their bottom line on financial viabilities. So this is one of the very interesting challenge out there on how to design a proper upgrade on these computing loads so that they can stand the required grid interconnection standards for low voltage right through. And then vice versa, what should be a proper power grid level standard that would make sure that the system level stability is intact with the penetration of such large computing loads. So we are sort of helping out as we speak, trying to develop such models and such analysis capabilities for large scale mining facilities. So where we can actually scale up this from this per miner level, kilowatt level a power consumption to a megawatt level aggregated, perhaps some 20,000 or 30,000 such miners, and then trying to understand what exactly would that actually mean on a large bulk transmission grid. So as I wrap up my talk here, I just wanted to kind of highlight that this is really some research that is driven by the emerging need of really accommodating large computing loads, in particular in the area of blockchain and cryptocurrency mining. And it is still at its very infancy. So there's a lot of things that are unknown and unclear at this moment. But I think one thing that is for sure is that there's a lot more energy needs for such applications. So we as a power system community, I think will have a very important role to play in designing and defining and also leading the kinds of interactions between the computing industry and the power sector. It still remains a major challenge and opportunity, but I think it's a lot of fun to work on these problems, and also a lot of opportunities for both intellectual and business entrepreneurship. And with that, I would like to sort of just end my talk by showing you this sort of a time scale view. I think there's a variety of interesting challenges from these large computing loads. Some of these challenges are residing in the shorter time scale on the transients on the control side. And also some of the challenges and opportunities lies in the sort of a optimization and economics time frame. And on both ends, there's a lot more unknown than known. So I think it's just a great area to study, and as you can see, we have a lot of dedicated students and researchers and collaborators from industry and government, whom I wish to acknowledge for their contributions on this work. And I would be more than happy to open it up for any questions or comments. Thank you. So I guess I will be moderating the Q&A session by myself. So I will just, so you can feel free to just type in questions that you have, and I'll just sort of go through the list as I see them. And one of the questions that I see here by Professor Lee Despachian is that one issue I have not heard you mention is the volatility of the Bitcoin industry itself, based on what might termed as a Ponzi game model, where belief in continuing profit is needed to sustain actual continuing profits. So yes, you are correct. I think this is a very new and nascent industry. I don't think that there is any long-term detailed planning for this industry. It's very much driven by the economics, the availability of power, and other macro level market issues. That's actually one of the challenges I see from the power system side, which is when you are doing the planning for power industry, you are planning for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Whereas this emerging industry of crypto mining, they might only exist for 3, 4, 5, or even shorter years. So that is actually, in fact, incompatible timescale of planning. But with that said, they're coming onto the grid. This area is not just crypto mining. There's a lot more AI computing loads coming to the grid as well. So I think, regardless of the nature of these computing loads, it is to the responsibility of the grid to be fully prepared and fully understanding of what is the impact of this emerging computing loads. So that's sort of the way I would think about it is how do we prepare the grid more ready for these emerging large computing loads? Thank you. Next question is by Parag Mitra. Right through from a load's perspective, it may not be the same as right through from the grid perspective. A load can ride through by shifting the demand to local battery, for example. The grid would still see that load disappear and move to a local battery not connected to the grid. Is there a need to resolve this difference in understanding? Absolutely, yes. So you are very much to the point. Load ride through can be done through a local battery, although local battery would be a very expensive proposition. So a lot of the innovation needs actually right now here is that can someone come up with a solution that would not be so much demand on the need for a large amount of energy storage on site? Because if you think about its scale, it's a big amount of energy storage need, and that is a lot of cost. And also from the grid side, it's not going to be the same from the load side. So how do we reconcile this? This is a lot of need. I think a lot of the unknown is really coming from the need to really reconcile the modeling aspect of how does one model this EMT type of load models of load interaction with the grid. So I think there's a lot of open questions out there. Thank you. Slava has a question: how much of megawatt and how quickly can mining farm reduce in a controllable manner? So Slava, they can be controlled down pretty much within a couple of minutes for the entire operation. So if you have a 700 megawatt operation, it can be reduced in a few minutes to be fully down. So that's a very, very fast responsive megawatt operation. Rahul, hello. How would this research relate to a similar problem faced by electric vehicle charging? The problem is different in a number of ways. Number one, the amount, just the sheer scale is a lot more here in a location as compared to one particular vehicle charging station. Number two, the kind of the nature of the load profile is quite different. Electric vehicle charging is largely dependent on individual users, whereas these computing loads are largely driven by interplay between power price and cryptocurrency prices. So usually they are on, except for the time when the grid is very stressed. So the next question, do the crypto mining equipment run at full capacity 24 hours a day, or do they ramp up a certain period of the day? Right now, usually the way they operate that is they run it 24, because as long as the power price is below certain threshold, and as long as the crypto price is above certain threshold, they're going to make a profit. So they will be doing that, but they are very much, some of the big ones are already very much tuned in the demand response products out in the market, and they're trying to respond to those as well, both for, I guess, profit making purposes and also for good citizen purposes. John, related to the Parag's question, what feasibility options have been investigated, such as the grid sees a write-through whereby the data mining itself provides a temporary shut-off and return? Yes, that is exactly the point, which is people are thinking about different options. Of course, one of the natural options is to require these crypto facilities to be equipped with significant amount of energy storage on site, just like the traditional data center have. Like if you go to Google's data center, they have that. But that's a very expensive proposition. So they're looking for innovations, and this is just a very active area of innovation needs. So if, to actually to write through that with least amount of energy storage on site. Vladimir, is it more common that mining operations have their own source of energy in order for that type of operation can be efficient? They cannot rely on the grid. So the answer is it's all driven by the cost. So there has been some operations. For example, there's this company out here in Texas called Giga Energy, in which it was kind of created by two of our undergraduates here. They're making big now. What they do is they do some flare gas. If you go around the Texas, you see a lot of oil fields and gas fields, and you need to have taken care of this flare gas. So instead of burning the flare gas, they turn that into a useful source of energy, and then they provide these off-grid solutions. So there are such opportunities and business out there. Paul Mills, did I understand correctly that they made money from demand response they did by mining? In that month of August 2023, the answer is yes. But again, I'm not a financial, I'm not accounting expert, so I'm not making any comment regarding how much money they make from each category, but this is what I see from their SEC report. Xiaohui Liu, thanks for, can you comment on the traditional data center loads? Do the massive conclusion for to also apply to cloud computing if they more reliability and less flexibility? Yes, it's a very good question. The answer is the traditional data centers probably have a higher service needs or service requirement, right? So for example, we have a Zoom call right now. That Zoom call cannot be dropped. So there are a certain level that cannot be flexible. But a lot of other level of computing are indeed flexible. For example, the training of large language models, things like ChatGPT, there's a lot of training that can be flexible. So in that regard, it is quite similar that can be applied from what we found here in crypto to these large AI data centers. Greg, alternative theory where BTC may be used for power projection in the internet and thus may be a matter of national strategy defense. Are you familiar with this? And if true, what's the implication of bulk I have never heard about that. But I guess if I just read from your question, it seems to be that you're suggesting the BTC, here BTC stands for Bitcoin, it's kind of like reducing them is equivalent to providing some supply to the grid. That, I guess, conceptually makes sense, although one needs to study how controllable are these in times of emergency, which would be something interesting to study in the future. So I think these are all the questions I have seen so far. I hope I have addressed them all. If there is any further question, please feel free to type it in here. Oh, there is another one. To what extent do crypto mining facilities allow automation to trigger demand response? What are acceptable mechanisms to actuate demand response? It's a great question. In fact, a lot of them has already been doing that. In fact, a lot of them has been participating in this so-called emergency responsive service, ERS market here in Texas. So what they typically do is that they would contract out with some load-serving entities. For example, this Priority Power, the one that I just mentioned about in the panel discussion, is one of such companies. And they will then provide the automation and IT support for these crypto mining facilities to respond to either a real-time energy market price or to some of these demand response triggers like ERS systems, ERS here in ERCOT or similar kind of markets out there in other regional markets. So the large ones are quite active in doing so, and so that's why there is this very active large flexible loads LFL task force here in ERCOT, and in fact we are going to have another blockchain energy research consortium workshop in about 3 weeks. So just stay tuned with that. And I guess maybe I'll just call Steve Brandon's question as the last one. Thank you, Steve. How have you done similar studies on AI computing specifically, or are these studies still in the preliminary stages? The studies are still in the preliminary stages, but I think a lot of the findings are indeed quite generalizable towards AI computings, especially for the ones that are using non-time sensitive tasks like training the GPTs and stuff like that. I will tell you one anecdote. We had a gentleman flying down here from Dallas. He is one of the large oil companies, and he kind of turned himself into what he called computing cowboy. Right? He just submitted a 2 gigawatt worth of electric power interconnection request near Dallas area for the Encore utility territory. And their goal is to build some AI computing center and respond to the grid signals, which is something very similar to what we have presented here. So it is a very dynamically evolving sector, and certainly a lot of interesting challenges and opportunities. So with that, I would end my presentation for today. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is on the slide. And I thank you for your attention, and we will be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shi. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today, and we really appreciated this presentation. As you can see, I've launched the webinar poll. We appreciate your participation in the poll. It helps us improve our webinars. You will find slides and recordings of this webinar on our PSERC website, and our next webinar will be on April 17th. We hope to see you all there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.